Today is Monday, December 9th, and this is Spring Office Hours, Season 3, Episode 42, IntelliJ Tips and Tricks with Siva Reddy. My name is Dan Vega, Spring Developer Advocate at Broadcom, joined by my good friend and colleague, DaShaun Carter. DaShaun, how's it going?
It's going wonderful. It's a great time to be a Spring Developer Advocate. I love my job. I love this show. This is my favorite thing. I can look forward to this every week. And I don't know about you, but I've got my hands with keeping busy with Spring Boot 3.4, with all the cool new stuff happening in Spring AI. I'm having a lot of fun. I realize that front-end work is not my forte, but I've got this tool called Vaadin that I like a lot, and it's helped me move forward. And yeah, I can actually build some pretty interesting front ends and feel like I'm actually delivering something that I can put in front of customers. So that's fun.
Especially with AI tools. They're really good at building front ends with popular technologies like a Vaadin, like a Vue. You could say, hey, give me a Vaadin form that looks like this. You can give it a picture and say, create this form for me in Vaadin. And then even if your front end skills aren't strong, you have a starting point. And if you're good on the back end, you're used to working with Spring, you can make everything work. So that's pretty exciting. To try to stitch that together 10 years ago, not a fun challenge.
I'm also doing upgrades, right? I'm sometimes, and maybe I shouldn't be, but sometimes I'm embarrassed if I'm not using the latest and greatest. I'm trying to live that N-0 life, and I want to be on the latest and greatest. So sometimes I accidentally pulled up an old version of one of our tools. Earlier, I was on Spring Application Advisor 1.0.4, and I was like, what have I done? So I had to go grab my other laptop. I'm like, just wait, please hold to bring up the latest version. And it works. So just those kind of things. One of the things I've been doing, Spring Security is one of the harder things to upgrade. So if you've got anything doing Spring Security, you're using Open Rewrite, you're moving things forward, you're going to run into Spring Security. Maybe not on all of them, but you'll find that you run into Spring Security, and I'm really looking forward to. We're gonna have Rob Winch on an upcoming show. That's exciting.
Week. Yeah.
But the thing that I always run into, and the thing that really is that that makes sense. When you're upgrading Spring Security, remember, don't look for a one-to-one. They made it easier. Now we have all of these with defaults options to move over. The open rewrite recipes are going to help you on some of the things, but don't look for a one-to-one. It's easier. It's been made simpler. For most things, you have an easier path forward. You'll have less code to write. You will throw away code, and it's okay. Be comfortable with that. Read the docs. The docs are great, and it's easy to search. So that's all I'm going to say. Upgrading Spring Security it doesn't have to be as hard as we make it out to be sometimes.
Yeah.
And wait, last thing. When you come to my house for dinner, if you leave hungry, that's your fault. This is Spring Office Hours. This is your chance to hang out, chat, bring your questions. If you've got questions and you don't ask, that's your fault. Do not leave hungry. Ask your questions. And if you're joining us from anywhere, you're joining us, say hi and let us know where you're joining us from. Because my mom and dad are always watching. I love you, Mom and Dad.
Hi, Mom and Dad. I feel like we need to make a t-shirt, living that N-0 life.
Done. That's notes to self, N-0 life t-shirt.
That would be fun. Something I did a quick video last week. It wasn't even a real video. It was something I just threw on Twitter and a YouTube short on the new Spring Initializer bookmarks feature. Did you see that?
I did. And I saw it. And did you see my comment? I saw your video and you were adding things. And I was like, but is he going to do it? Is he going to add the actuator? Oh, I was.
My defaults are.
It felt like forever.
In the actuator. So.
And you waited until the end. And I was like, no, what is happening? It was very dramatic. Yeah. I was like, wait, what? So yeah, I did watch it and I did like it. And that is a cool feature.
If you don't know, the Spring Initializer got a bookmark feature, which seems like a small feature, but a really cool one, right? So if I build certain configurations, like when I build an AI app with something like Anthropic, right? There are certain configurations that I use. So I add all those things. So now those 10 different dependencies that you use, you can bookmark that project and save it. You can even go into your recent projects and bookmark that. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I did
It's very cool. And I found 20 ways I figured out how I was going to use it. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Before we get started, we are doing this live stream here. So thanks to everyone who is joining us in the chat. Again, let us know where you're joining us from. Get your questions in. We'll see if we can't get them answered today. We do live stream this every Monday from 1 to 2, depending on what we're doing that week. But here we are, 1 to 2 today. But if you can't catch us live, you can go ahead and catch the replay on the Spring Developer YouTube channel. We also go ahead and take this and turn this into a podcast. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to find out more about the show, as well as even suggest some topics, head over to springofficehours.io. With that, I think we are going to jump into today's episode and welcome our very, very special guest, Siva.
Yes.
Hello.
We were just talking about before the show, again, the wonderful world of the internet. Siva and I have exchanged conversations for years and never been on a Zoom, let alone in the same room. So this is very cool. Very cool to sit down with you today, and hopefully we'll get to catch each other in real form sooner or later. So for those people out there who may not know who Siva is, can you give us a quick introduction to yourself?
Sure. I'm Siva. I'm from India, and currently I'm working as a developer advocate at JetBrains. I have been a developer for the last 15 years, and then I switched into developer advocate role. So that's my short journey.
It's weird. We always say here that you were a developer advocate long before that was your title at work.
Yeah.
Right. Because I've also been a Siva fan and borrowing code from his amazing GitHub repos and using it in my demos. But yeah, I think that was kind of a fair assessment. You were a Spring developer advocate, but just an advocate in general for a long time before you had that title.
Exactly. Like, yeah, it's always good to promote the tools that you love to work with and you enjoy using them. Why not spread the love to others?
Mm-hmm.
I have been doing that for a long time.
There's a couple questions already here, and it's a little off topic, but since they were there, I think, hey, let's go ahead and jump in. One is, hey, I'm a beginner to Java. What's the best way to get a job and learn deeply? Like, that's kind of hard. That's a hard thing to get into, but we've talked about it on previous shows. And then there's a follow-up question, which kind of like follows it well. Do you guys think that LeetCode is important to get a job related to Java and Spring Boot? LeetCode is something I hear about a lot. And there's always people that are looking to find jobs, but these ones, just because they're asked. And I wanted to hear Siva's take. Siva, what do you think is a good way to get in with Java and Spring?
With Java and Spring Boot, so there are wonderful tutors online like Dan Vega. He has a bunch of videos explaining, and I don't have on core Java, but I have material on Spring Boot, and there are many other wonderful tutors that are willing to help you, and there are a bunch of courses that you can learn from. So that way you can upskill in Java and Spring Boot. And the other question, do we need to practice LeetCode to get job in Java and Spring Boot? Personally, I'm not a big fan of LeetCode, but for a beginner, I mean a junior developer, maybe they can use those LeetCode practice questions to kind of improve their analytical skills, and then that's it. But once you get into a job, I don't think those puzzles and all are going to be really helpful in your day-to-day job. But if you want to build your muscle with the puzzles and the interesting things, sure, go ahead and try it out. But not a big fan of LeetCode stuff myself.
DaShaun, I want to jump in here too, because one of the things that what is the objective here? And it says, I'm a beginner to Java, and what is the best way to get a job? So his objective is not to just kind of learn this stuff for fun. Like, he wants to get a job doing Java. So I always say, hey, work backwards from your end goal. If your goal is to get a job, where do you want to get a job? Do you want to get a job that they're in India that you commute to? Do you want to get a remote job? If that's the case, go take a look at who's hiring in your area, right? what are the skills that they're looking for. So take that and work backwards from there. I think from that you can kind of create a blueprint on exactly what you need to learn. And then, as Siva said, there are resources for everything on the internet these days. So it's just a matter of honing in on what skills you need, and then I think following that path. And yeah, I hate LeetCode stuff. I hate it because I'm not good at it. So I'm probably being a little bit of a hater there. But I've gone through all the LeetCode questions to get jobs at, I think depending on where you're getting hired too, right? Some of these big FANG companies are going to require those types of questions still. If you're applying to a startup or mid-sized company, maybe they don't require those. So it just depends on where you're trying to go. If you're trying to go work for Netflix, I think they still require some of those. We'd have to ask our buddy Paul, but I think that's just the cost of admission to some of these companies, right?
Yep.
So if that's the case, and it, prepare for it, right?
Yep. And my thing is grind. Like you'll hear people. I'm doing a lot of live streaming and watch a lot of live streams where they're just going to grind LeetCode. They're going to code. Mm-hmm. I don't care if that. I think that either way, whatever you're grinding on, that's the best way to go and figure things out and to get more reps. The thing that I tell my kids, whether it's schoolwork or computers or whatever sport they're doing, you want to get better at anything, you have to do more of it. Mm-hmm. So if you want to get a job in Java, you got to do more of it. There's no shortcut, but there's infinite ways to get there.
Here's the bummer though about that is as Siva said, once you get on the actual job, I don't know how much you're doing that. So you're gonna grind on this and you really learn this stuff for the interview process, and then when you get to work, you're not going to use it anymore. You're going to forget it all again.
Yep. So. But there's nothing that replaces those reps, right? Yeah. Having the experience, understanding whether it's the syntax or the architecture, there's nothing replaces reps. There's no shortcut to figuring things out. You've got to get more time in it. So you can either do the LeetCode route or build something.
A good example of this is regex. I learned regex at one point in my career. I can't tell you anything with regex right now because I just don't use it anymore. I use AI for that. It's hey, give me a regex expression to do this.
Yep. Yeah, as you mentioned, you always need to work backwards. Try to see if you are trying to get into a specific company. Find out what kind of interview process they are having. And if you are so determined, probably you need to do that LeetCode thing, even if you don't like it for, let's say, a few months, and then go there. And of course, after that, you don't do this reversing the binary trees. And I don't think so. Nobody does it on a daily basis. So, but yeah, sometimes you have to do something to get into the place where you want to be.
Yeah, but I think looking at those, even when I was out looking for different positions, it's what are the companies I want to work for? What are they doing there? If they are working on microservice architecture, they'll specifically kind of call that out, and that's something you should know going into an interview and not just having experience building monolithic applications, right? So those are really good to look at what companies are looking for. That'll kind of help you know what you need to hone in on. So. I
like Ted's tip here. Find a community of people to learn with. Don't go alone if you can. Find a community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mentors don't even need to be someone you specifically talk to every day, right? There are certainly people in the community that I consider mentors that I don't ever really talk to. And I think being a part of a community is really good. I mean, it's done wonders for my career, and that doesn't mean that you have to speak at a conference, but maybe you go to a conference, and when you're there, take advantage of the time that you have there and talk to people and network and have those conversations and say, hey, maybe we'll talk on Twitter or via email later on. So. Yeah, community is everything for me, at least in this world.
Just this community. Look, we got the question started, and then we got everybody bringing their ideas and answers, and that's fantastic.
Awesome. So I had a question for you on kind of getting into the role that you're in as a developer advocate at JetBrains. DaShaun had kind of mentioned it before, but you've been an advocate, for probably most of your career. What what changed and got you over to JetBrains that really made you want to get into this, like doing it full time?
So I have been a developer, as I mentioned, for 15 years.
Mhm.
But even before that, after 4 or 5 years of experience, I started blogging. I started helping other people in a one-to-one basis. Like some people send an email saying that, "Hey, I got stuck with this problem. Can you help me out?" So if I know I can help, I have been doing that. And also, whenever I learn something and if I got excited about this, I share it on Twitter. So in a way, I have been sharing whatever I learned either through blog or
Mhm.
even sometimes it happens through classroom sessions within the company. So whenever a new batch of freshers join in the organization, I used to take sessions and teach Java, Spring Boot, and things like that. So, but the reach is very limited. Like I interact with a small group of people, and also it is a lot of a time taken process. It's not like, okay, I have
Mhm.
my regular job, and then in addition to that, I am doing all this. It's taking so much time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I first got the opportunity to work as a developer advocate from Atomic Jar, I was like, oh my God, I have been doing this, but now I can do this officially. It's not like 8 hour work and then you do this. I
Right.
can do this helping people as a day-to-day job. So I
Yeah.
am really happy, and then took the opportunity, and I'm very happy with this. Now,
Yeah.
I think one of my mentors a long time ago said, you can learn stuff, you can become expert in some technologies, but there is a limit how much more you can be productive. At
Hmm.
when you reach certain level,
Hmm.
only way you can increase your value is helping others to grow. That's the only way. You cannot become 10x developer. Only you can make others 2x or 3x. That's the way only you can be more
I
valuable to
love
other
that.
people.
Yep.
So yes, I learned thing. I know how to do it, but I'm not the only one keep doing all these things in a much faster way. So that's when I started teaching other junior developers, and then I literally see like when they learn things, when they are becoming more productive. That's when you realize you are doing something good.
Yeah. That's so cool.
And exactly. So then once I step into this developer advocate role, I'm really enjoying it. As I mentioned, Spring Boot is one of the core technologies that I love and work with for a long time. And also, I have been using IntelliJ for almost 7, 8 years, and I do love it. And then the interesting thing is, even though I'm using it for many years, every single day I find something new, and oh
Yeah.
my God, I don't know this. I
Yeah.
have been using IntelliJ for many years, but still I don't know this. Still, even today, I learn something new, and then like that, there are many things.
Yep,
So
that's awesome. You know, one of the I think DaShaun and I have like kind of keep spreading this message is that like you don't need permission to be an advocate for the things that you're passionate about, right? And as so many people we've talked to, even just this year, right? We found out like you never know where it's going to lead to. Maybe you have no aspirations of being a developer advocate today, but start sharing those things. You never know like where it's going to lead in the community. And I always love hearing stories like that. So that's awesome that you kind of ended up where you are.
Uh, I started with Visual Age in the 90s, and just what it was doing beyond. It was like my first real IDE. And then I moved to Eclipse, right? I was out of university. I moved to Eclipse, and I remember the interview with Constantine. And Constantine said, "Why are you using Eclipse?" And I was like, well, it's free, and I don't have a lot of money to spend." He's like, "But that's not a good enough answer." And he introduced me to IntelliJ in 2002, and I've been using it ever since.
That's
So yeah,
awesome.
and I'm not a deep user. It's just that I've gotten used to it, and I'm sure that there are other reasons to use others, but this is the one that I use. It's the one I'm comfortable with, and I've built in a lot of my own productivity hooks into IntelliJ, and I use it everywhere, and it's amazing.
For me, it is an interesting story. Again, I started with Eclipse, and I have used it for a few years, and then I joined ThoughtWorks. There, most of the people use IntelliJ IDEA. And then at one point of time, we have conducted a workshop, TDD workshop. And there we were building some application, and we are trying out how you can practice TDD. Okay, first thought, whatever the way you want to solve the problem, just write the code. Don't think about all the patterns and everything. And then once you get the solution working, extract the little reusable pieces into functions or methods. And then if the class is still bigger, then do refactoring and extract some piece of code into a separate class. So it is literally like TDD and IntelliJ's, all the refactoring shortcuts come together. And that's how we gave the workshop, TDD with IntelliJ, especially with the refactoring techniques. It's a good combo.
The refactoring has been like really big for me over the years. Like when a new feature comes out, like Lambda expressions, right? Maybe like I wasn't used to writing that code, but I would write the for loop, and then IntelliJ is saying you could refactor this and use a Lambda expression here.
Thank you.
So I'd click that button and go, thank you. And then I go, oh, now I know how to use that and when to use that. So I've learned a lot of code over the years just by using IntelliJ and some of the things. Somebody mentioned this in the comments, but there is a really good book out here. If you want to kind of jump into IntelliJ, Getting to Know IntelliJ by Trisha G and Helen Scott. Sorry. Really good book. I haven't gone completely through it. It's one of those like reference manuals, like you said, like I just want to look something up and like learn how to do something. But yeah, IntelliJ is a little bit overwhelming at times. You could just like every day learn something, and like you would never run out of time.
There are many. Please go ahead.
No. Siva, you are the guest. You go ahead.
No, there are many things that, even though it's a small feature, that makes you feel wow.
Mm-hmm.
Something like when I'm learning from some blog post, I copy some code, and then one day I accidentally pasted it. I thought I already created a file, and then I'm pasting that code in a Java file, but I didn't create the file. Accidentally, I pasted it in a package, and IntelliJ created the file with the correct name, but then it's wow, I don't know this feature. So something like this. And also again, one day I copy a Maven dependency from pom.xml and I pasted it. So later I thought, okay, I'll refactor it and paste it in Gradle file. And it automatically converted that into Gradle dependency format. So like this, there are many such small features that makes you wonder, wow, it's a wow factor. Like there are many things like that you can do and then feel, wow, I didn't know that. We can do this.
You just gave us one. Any other tips that you've picked up lately that you're really excited about?
Sure. Recently, I was awestruck with this. You can auto inject Spring Beans. Usually, how do you do? Let's say you are in a controller and you want to inject some service. Earlier, I used to go to the top of the class and then create private final, whatever the dependency, and then inject into constructor. Now, right inside your method, when you want to first use some bean, start typing the bean name. Like I want to inject the customer service in customer controller, start typing inside the method customer service, and then IntelliJ will show you the drop down which matching Spring Bean names. Press enter, it creates a field, it creates a constructor, injects it. It's like in a flow. You don't need to move across the class file. You just start writing the code and then IntelliJ helps you along the way. So that's a really cool feature.
So that's like, hey, I got to do all this boilerplate setup first to do the thing I actually want to do. Just get into the method, do the thing you want to do, and let IntelliJ handle all the kind of boilerplate stuff for you.
Don't mind me, just trying out these new features over here in IntelliJ.
Yeah, that's a really nice one.
And there is another one recently in 2024.3 release. Again, we already have this auto completion for Spring Data repositories. Like when you are trying to create a finder, find by name or email, something like that, you have that auto completion already. But when you are inside that Spring Data repository interface, but now if you are in a service class and you want to create some new one. Let's imagine there is no method called find by email, but you don't have to go to repository to create that. Right in your service, you can start typing user repository dot find by email. It's going to auto complete that and also create method in the repository also. So,
That's handy. That's
so
awesome.
yeah.
That's slick.
I've been enjoying how IntelliJ is able to reference the Java code in Timely. Nice.
Yeah, all the integrations, right? It's got plugins and it identify. You know, if I pull in something new, it says, oh, we've got a plugin for that. Thank you, right? Whether it's Timeleaf or Vaadin or what was the other one? What was I just
JDE.
doing? Yeah, like there's all sorts of plugins, and this just in, you can also create your own plugins. Like the plugin ecosystem is so powerful because the IntelliJ platform has made it so easy to create plugins. So that's exciting.
One of my favorite features of IntelliJ is live templates. So if you're not aware of live templates, it's not really like copy and paste code. It goes a lot further than that. And you have the ability to like create a template and say maybe I want to write a command line runner in Spring Boot. I can have this keyboard shortcut like CML, that's my command line runner, and it will write that code out for me. But you can also use like variables in there. So you could say, or like insertion points, like, hey, when you're done, this is where I want you to insert it. Another one here is Ted has brought up the logger instance. I don't know this one. I have a live template that creates my logger instance. So I just say logger and it creates it, and it can use a variable with the class name. So it knows how to grab that class name and say .class, right? So for me, live templates is like one of those features. Like I will never move to another IDE because I always need live templates. I use it in my workflow. I use it a lot when I'm presenting because I don't want to like type out a whole class name, but I also don't want to have some like code that's already written. I want like the user to see me like going through that motion of doing it. So yeah, so live templates for me is like one of those features that I use on a daily basis.
Absolutely, absolutely. My favorite feature is a live template. Like I'm not someone who remembers a lot of shortcuts.
Yeah, I
I
know.
can't remember. So
Yeah.
I heavily rely on these live templates. And in fact, I have a Git repository where I mention all the live templates that I usually use in my day-to-day coding, and just 2-3 characters, tab,
Yep.
and boom, you have a bunch of code that you don't have to write every time.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and I would say I don't use it as much anymore, but like I think when I was first getting started with maybe not first, but when I was first getting going with Spring, I would have like a live template of like a controller that I've written before. So I know what a well-structured controller looked like. Even if it wasn't what I was going to use, it was like, oh, now I have some code I've written before that I can kind of like model off of. So again, just another way to like reinforce learning, and IntelliJ keeps like doing that for me. So
I first came across these live template features when I was watching Matt Riable presentations sometime.
Yeah.
And then I learned about live templates, and then I explored further, and then I realized there is a file template feature also. And what is cool about it is, let's say you can create a file template, like you want to create a Spring REST controller, or you want to create a Spring command line runner. So when you try to create a new class, you automatically see class interface, things like that, right? So similarly, you can create your own file template where you can say, okay, I want to create a REST template, REST controller, or service, or repository, whatever. So, and also you can create multi-file template where you want to create simple CRUD operations, something like that. And you can create a multi-file template and just give a customer, and then it's going to create a controller, service, a repository, just if that is the thing you want to follow. So like this, there are so many features. The more you explore, the more you are in awestruck.
DaShaun, I can't hear you.
I've forgotten about that feature, There's so many features here that I've just forgot about. And oh, yeah, I've seen that. I've used that in the past. I forgot. Simon brings up one that has come up a lot lately, especially when I like the way that JitterTed stays in his IDE. I find that just super powerful. He doesn't ever have to leave. And the embedded HTTP client, I was doing a live stream last week, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's time to break out Postman." I was like, "What?
No.
Nobody wants to leave their IDE to go do Postman." No, the embedded HTTP client and the way that you can have tests and you can actually save those tests to run in your IntelliJ later. So that you don't
I
have
like
to,
that because
that's
I could
huge.
check those into a repository. You could pull those down, and then especially for like me as someone who's like building out demos in like a demo repository, you could pull that down and check it out and like run those yourself. You don't have to like type all those out, right? Like that's really nice. So.
Here's a good question. What are your IntelliJ plugins that like
Oh.
you always grab? Yeah, like we were doing the dependencies when we go to start.spring.io, actuator, right? 12VM. What are your plugins? If you're setting somebody up for the first time on IntelliJ, what are the plugins that you make sure that they've got installed?
So
Well,
I go
oh,
ahead.
good. I was gonna say one of the questions I constantly get, no matter what video I make, either somebody yells at me for using light mode, which I still don't get. Like I get yelled at for using light mode, or if I'm using dark mode, somebody says, "What is the theme that you're using?" So there is a Monokai Pro theme, and then there's like different like filters. I use the Ristretto filter, so that is one that I get asked about a lot. But I'll leave it to you. What other plugins do you use?
So I mostly use Maven build tool, but it's kind of a verbose with all the XML. But there is a plugin called Laconic Maven plugin
Mm,
that collapses all the dependencies where you can see a single line, but still you can see what dependency it is. Very cool plugin. I would strongly suggest that one. And also for visually, I like colorful icons. So
hmm
I install Material Icons plugin, which makes it a little bit more colorful. And in IntelliJ Ultimate, already there are a bunch of plugins that comes bundled
Right.
with like a Docker support,
Yep.
Kubernetes support. So as you mentioned, like it's HTTP client, Docker support, Kubernetes support. So it and best is database tools. Like
Yes.
that is awesome. Like you can spend an entire day exploring database tools support itself. Like you can create a database connection, and then if you want to generate JPA entities and all, you can generate it.
Mhm.
Or you want to generate the Liquibase or Flyway based schema migrations from those, you can do that. So there are many features where for most of the tasks you don't need to leave the IDE. You just do all those things from right from the IDE itself.
Yeah, so I will a couple that I use. We have a Spring for GraphQL plugin and a GraphQL plugin. So those two I use for GraphQL development. I've been using Java Template Engine a lot lately, and there is a plugin for that. So look for the JTE plugin. That's a good one. I use GitHub Copilot because I use VS Code for some things as well. So I had Copilot, a long time ago, and so that kind of transferred over to IntelliJ as well. So there's a GitHub Copilot extension or plugin for that as well. But yeah, I find that like over the years, the number of plugins I have to install when I use IntelliJ goes down and down because, as you said, as like a plugin grows into like a necessity, IntelliJ seems to just roll that into the community edition, and like all those things that I need, like Docker and Kubernetes, they're already there for me. So
Yeah, a good example would be like there is a JPA Buddy plugin, which provides a lot of features working with JPA and Liquibase and Flyway. So slowly, many of those features are kind of becoming part of IntelliJ Ultimate out of the box. You don't need to install any plugins for that. On top of it, in the recent releases, there are more and more features are being added. Like if you are having any scheduled jobs, when you start your application, you don't have to wait to to wait that time reaches. Like you can right away trigger the execution of that scheduled method.
Mhm.
And like these are the small features that makes you do in the right way and easiest way. And another cool feature is when you are using test containers, you type in, okay, what type of container I want to use, and then put colon, and then it will automatically show all the tags. So you don't have to browse through, go to Docker Hub and then see. So right from the ID itself, you can see all that. So all these bunch of small things come together and then give the pleasant experience.
One of the things I of the plugins that we have gone through, I use the durenv plugin so I can bring my secrets in for my environment. Excalidraw, ASCII Doctor, Vaadin, Terraform, Kubernetes. Those are the ones that I have, that I run, that I love, that I make sure that I have all the time. One of the comments here was about presentation mode. Presenter mode. This is super powerful when we're presenting live. It's a great experience for the developers, for the audience, and even when we're doing like live coding on a live stream. That's a powerful feature, having the different presentation modes.
Absolutely. Yeah, another one we were talking about before the show got started was Code with Me. So there is a way, like if you want to pair program with someone but not like do it over Zoom, you can go ahead and like share an instance of your IntelliJ editor with someone else, and then DaShaun could come in and say, "Oh, I see what's going on here. Let me go ahead and type." Instead of telling me what to type, you can just go in and type it out. So that's another pretty cool one.
And Anton is mentioning we forgot the debugger. How did we
Did you mention the debugger? Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty important.
Yeah. I mean, we at one point of time we all did that console.log or system.out.println and all that. But once you get to know IntelliJ debugger, like it's not even okay. Put a breakpoint and then go. There is a lot more beyond that. Like conditionally, you can only break when some exception happen or some condition matches. So there is a lot more to the debugger. Most of us use very basic features, but there is a lot more things.
Oh, this is a really good comment by Ted. I try to share it with everyone. +1 for the IDE Zoom. So if you don't know about this, I used to go in, so I'd go present somewhere, whether it's on my Zoom or in person. And it's like, okay, wait, I got to make everything a little bit bigger. So I go to my settings and go, let me change the font level for my editor. Then let me change the font level for everything else too, because maybe I'm going to bring up terminal and they can't see my navigator. Don't need to do that anymore. Shift. You can type in Zoom, and you go to Zoom to like 125%. It takes everything, zooms it up for you. Every time someone sees that, they go, what did you just do?
Such a great feature. Such a great feature. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, love that one.
Yeah.
And that's cool. Like you said, I feel like you work there and you're telling us like I learn something new every day, but I feel like it's like one of those things where I'm not going to learn all of these cool things at once. I just got to kind of pick up one thing here and there that I find really nice and productive, and just hold on to that and hopefully just keep learning new ones, because it just does so much. Every time I see a shortcut key, I'm like, I'm never going to remember that one.
Yeah, I think double shift is for people like us. Like I can't remember all those things, and double shift, it will open up the pop-up and then type what you want to do, and most likely it will show what is that a shortcut or option that you want to do. So that's another thing.
Question on that.
Yep.
You need key promoter X. Damn, I don't know what that is.
There is a plugin, Key Promoter X. If you don't remember shortcuts, whenever you use your mouse or something, it will show what a shortcut it is, and
that is built into IntelliJ now. I remember I used to install that some plugin like that, but now in IntelliJ you can check an option to basically show shortcuts. Like, so I do that sometimes when I'm presenting, because people see me do something like, what was that? I'm like, oh, sorry. Let me turn that on.
There
so
is
you see those shortcuts.
Assistant plugin. When you use shortcuts, it will show what key you pressed.
Right.
interesting.
Cool. So I know you're obviously big into the Spring community. We're here on Spring Office Hour. So I just want to get your thoughts on like recent releases. Spring Boot 3.4 just came out a little bit ago. 3.3 is in the wild. Anything that kind of caught your eye that you're really interested in?
Oh, yeah. I know this structured logging. That's one of the thing.
Yep.
Earlier, we used to do log back appenders and then do all kinds of things. Now, it is built in. And then there is Asad say MVC tester. I had a very difficult time using mock MVC with Hamcrest. You need to remember, it's not a
Yeah.
fluent API. You need to remember, should you use core matchers or matcher? It's always confusing to me. So now with this asset mock MVC, it's pretty good. Earlier, I used to go for rest assured. Now I think I can just use whatever is coming out of the box with Spring. And also test containers. There is a new improved API if you want to bind dynamic properties. Earlier, I think there is a property registry. Now there is a registrar or something like that. It is another interesting feature. Um, I mean, not 3.4.0, but in
Yep.
the recent times, I am very big fan of Spring Modulith.
Awesome.
I love Spring Modulith because I have worked with big monolithic applications. I know the suffering, and also I worked on microservices. I know the suffering. It's not a it's not a fun.
On both sides of
And
that table, there's suffering.
yes. So with Spring Modelet, it is like you don't have to go all the way to the extremes. You start here and then build it properly. When the need arises, you can split it out and then make it as a microservice. And Spring Modelet helps this doing this very easily. So I really love Spring Modelet. And then I like Spring AI. Again, like always, it brings all APIs and then provide a unified interface so that you don't have to learn 10 different APIs. You just use Spring AI interfaces and just you change the implementation. You can talk to with just configuration change. I did some exploration, but then my focus is on different thing. But
Yeah.
hopefully, soon I'll get back and then again start working on this Spring AI thing. Yeah,
Well,
these are the few things I enjoy.
if you jump into Spring AI, there is a really nice repo out there called Awesome Spring AI. I was just reading about this last week, but
Yes,
yeah,
I
go
know.
check that out. A lot of great resources in there if you want to get caught up on Spring AI. So,
Yes, yes, yes. Also, I follow your Bytes AI.
oh, my
Sorry,
bite-sized
bite-sized
newsletter.
AI. So from that blog post, I learned about Google Notebook AI or something.
Yep.
Wonderful. I learned from
Notebook.
your article.
Awesome.
So
Thanks. Appreciate that.
I,
Yeah, with Spring AI, this is for Vinay. Yeah, I'm here too. With Spring AI, one of the things that I've been working on lately is the whole conversation piece, being able to keep track of your conversations. So theoretically, I can have multiple LLMs that I'm running. I can have something like Spring Cloud Gateway, route, or do a scatter gather, the same conversation. So instead of spending money for something like OpenAI or Claude or something, I'm using the LLMs that I can get freely through the Ollama library, and I'm having conversations with more than one LLM at the same time. So I ask a question: what's the best way to start a plugin in IntelliJ? I want to create my own plugin, and I'll send it to multiple LLMs, and in a chat that I might have built with Vaadin or Shad CN, I can get all those answers back, and they're all in different conversations. So I'm keeping track of my own conversations without training somebody else's LLMs. That's what I'm doing.
Sounds like fun.
Fun and work, but that's how we learn, right?
Yep. You're also doing some cool stuff with images, right?
This is we have multimodal capability with images, and I'm Yeah, I have a lot of Raspberry Pis, so using Spring AI,
To
and
say the
this
least.
work has all been improved because of my work with IntelliJ. So I can do these really cool things. Something that we haven't talked about is being able to do the remote development. Because I'm doing stuff on Raspberry Pis, because I have these code bases all over the place, one of the cool things is being able to open remote repositories. So I can have code running on another machine and I can go and access that code base, that directory, and I can still be editing locally and making changes on that machine. That's one of my favorite features as well. Like I do that a
Oh my
lot.
God, the Git integration in IntelliJ is another really awesome feature. And I know this feels like an advertisement for JetBrains at this point because we have Siva on, but I would be doing this even if Siva wasn't on. So,
Yeah. It's
yeah, it's just one of those. I told Siva before that I've been paying for this personally for like 10 years. Like it's one of those things
22
that
years.
I have
Yeah.
to pay for it. Like I need it.
Yeah. Like I said, I started with it in 2002. I don't even know how old I was at that point, but yeah, I started paying for it in 2002, right before the end of the year.
Yeah.
And all of the things, this, I think we can be saying the same thing about like Spring Boot. All of those things that we've just been using for so long and we take for granted.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could, if I sat here and I used it for a minute, I'm like, oh yeah, but this feature and this feature. There's so many of these things that we have just kind of grown to love, and we've now had them for so long that we take it for granted. And also, there's so many new things that are coming out that we're fairly productive. I don't think anybody here of the three of us is like, oh man, I wish I was so much more productive. Like I
Right.
wish I had these. No, these things are always coming. So there's just more to learn about these tools and how to use them a little bit better. But I think we're all doing all right. IntelliJ's treated us well over the years.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny, like using maybe an unintended side effect of like using these tools like IntelliJ or even Spring. I think to a little bit of the same effect. I learned like some more things about Java by writing Spring applications. Like I don't think I ever used annotations until I got into like Spring development, or I hadn't used them heavily, right? Using annotation like deprecated or something, but like at that point it wasn't like a feature thing, right? Like now, like I use these things in Spring where it's like, oh, this you're marking this as a controller or a REST controller, and it like does something, and then that kind of like piqued my curiosity to go, oh, what are these annotations in Java? Like, how do they work? Let me understand like the internals of these. So it's always cool, like going down these kind of rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Actually, we can use our IDs as a learning companion. Like if I think about IntelliJ, it's like many things I get to know by its inspections.
Mm-hmm.
So I use some old Java API, and then it shows the yellow color underline saying that you can do in a better way. So
Mm-hmm.
quick fix, and it shows how you can improve that. So many new features, especially after Java 17, I haven't caught up with new features. So whenever I type or use some old API, IntelliJ suggests, okay, there is a better way. Like if you are doing some calling some lambda expression, which you can do with a simple method reference, it will suggest, and then you can just refactor it.
Yeah.
And also, like in many Spring Boot applications, people use Lombok, and they don't know what happens if you simply add at data annotation. And IntelliJ shows warning like it's not a good practice. It can have a bad impact, like it will create equals and hash code and all that. So in many ways, you can learn some things
Yeah.
from the IDE itself. As you type in, you can upgrade your skills.
Yeah, another one it does now too is if you try to like put at AutoWared on a field, it'll say, hey, favor constructor injection over field injection. Another thing it does is like if you make like I want to declare a field for my user repository, it will say, hey, that should be final. Like you don't need to. You can make that a final variable. So yeah, I think a good kind of takeaway from this episode for me, and that I already knew, but hopefully everyone in the audience is getting this, is that these little tips and tricks that come up in your IDEs, don't just like take them as like annoyances or pop-ups or something like that. like take a look at them and learn from
Opportunity
them
to
and
learn.
go, oh, okay, maybe that is a better way to write this thing. You don't need
Yeah,
AI
not
for all of this stuff. Your IDE is doing that already for you.
not only improvement, sometimes the inspections really help. Like for example, you are writing a Spring Boot REST API and you have some path variable, but you did not use the right mapping with the name. It shows the yellow underline. If you don't pay attention, you run it and then you invoke it and then you will
Mm,
get to know it
yep,
fails. Instead, it right away show in the ID as a warning, but it's not mapping. You
Yep.
either provide explicit name or rename the variable name. So
mhm,
I pay attention to these warnings. It's like if you
yep,
don't pay it now, you
yep,
will end up knowing it after 5 or 10 minutes.
yep,
Yep.
yep. Failing fast, shifting
Oh,
Yeah.
left.
yep. Submit says converting dot properties to dot YAML or vice versa. I do that quite a bit. I do that quite
I
a bit.
didn't. So I'm going to learn something new today. I didn't know I could do that. I just rename it to .yaml and I fixed all my properties.
Yep. Nope. There's a plugin. I
There
have
is
I
a
have a
plugin.
plugin for that.
Mm.
What is it called?
I have been using
Convert
YAML a lot more
YAML.
lately.
Convert YAML and properties file.
You know, another. I haven't tried this yet, but as just for fun, I wrote a tool that took in like a bunch of Java records. So like here are like 4 different records, or actually took in the JSON and created the records for me. And I wrote this tool just for fun, like messing around. And then somebody, I think Simon, pointed out to me that, hey, there's an IntelliJ plugin for that. So I want to like paste some JSON structure in. And then instead of having to go write all of those different records, it writes those for you. Because I always find that like, hey, I'm getting this response from this service. Now I gotta like deconstruct this and figure out what records. Like I don't want to do that. That seems like busy work, right?
Yep.
my my experimentation with AI tools start there. Actually, I
Yeah.
have a
Mhm.
class, I want to convert it to record,
Always.
or
Yeah.
I have a JSON and I want to create. So that's how I actually started using ChatGPT. And
Yep.
now with Spring, IntelliJ IDEA itself has AI assistant.
Yep.
So I put this in a message and then it will show how to create the records and all that. And yeah, there are many things like you can offload to AI tools, and then we don't need to do manually. Either there is a plugin or ask any AI tool. Yeah.
Yep. Christian's saying here, yeah, I just want to talk, right? And if you look at Christian Zolov's his demos, he's slowly trending in that direction where we're just going to be speaking. And Spring AI now has that capability built in where I can speak and I can have things translated back for me into text or speak or speech, sorry, or other. So yeah, it's moving
This
fast.
is. I just tweeted about this last week. This is like one of my biggest productivity hacks. What I've done on my keyboard, if you go into like a Mac, you can go into settings. You can do like keyboard shortcuts under accessibility. I've mapped my F5 function key, which has a microphone on it, to my microphone here. So when I'm on a website that has a text input, like ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude or Twitter, I just hit that button and I start talking because, as Chris said, like most of this is not write me a blog post. This is like you're talking to another person trying to communicate what you're trying to do. So it's usually very verbose and then it's usually very iterative, right? So to type all that out is a lot of stuff to type out. So I just sit here and go, all right, I'm trying to write a blog post on artificial intelligence. Here's what I know so far. Here's the tone I want. Here's the style I want. And like I just talk to an LLM like I'm talking to a coworker. So yes, check that out. I put some on Twitter to how to do this, but I think that's a huge productivity hack. If you're just like talking to LLMs, use your microphone. Don't type all that stuff out.
Yeah, it's gotten much easier.
But yeah,
That's good.
Christian has
Good hack.
a nice blog post up on the OpenAI multimodality support using in the voice assistant. Like you can build that into your Spring applications now. You can just talk to your Spring app and it works. So pretty cool.
I think I need to try that out. Many times when I want to write a blog post, it's not like I already know exactly in which order I want to write.
Right.
I just dump all the thoughts and then
Yes.
later
Yeah.
iterate on it and
That
then
Yep.
write it out.
what is the tool
So
that I used to use? Yeah, that used to be my cheat code. And instead of just talking and thinking out loud, I'd call you up, Siva, for example, and I'd be like, "Hey, I'm thinking about writing a blog post, and here's what's in my mind." And I would have a conversation with you, and I'd transcribe that conversation because you're going to ask questions. Well, what about this? And I would get all of that transcription, and then would be the base for my blog post or whatever I was doing.
Speaking of blog posts, this is a really good transition. Again, I'm not just saying this because Siva is here. I swear, I don't read a lot of blogs these days, but this is one of them. JetBrains has a wonderful blog. So many great contributors over there, including Siva. Definitely check that out. blog.jetbrains.com. One of my go-to places. So check that out.
There are
Again,
some questions.
Siva, I'll expect a check after we're done with this show.
sure.
Some of the questions that we didn't get to that were in the chat. Ankit asked, like, who decides when to add new features to the Spring Initializer, and how do we get notified of new features that are added? The best way, it's the whole group, and it's all OSS. So the things that you find there today are all OSS. And the best way to find out when new stuff is there is to go and find out when new stuff is there. Visit it often. And
check out the GitHub repo. I don't know this, but I'm guessing somebody brought this up in an issue somewhere, and this was addressed. So yeah, check out the GitHub repos that you're interested in. Watch them, pay attention to them.
And on our initializer conversation, the bookmarks, Simon says, I hope that they allow us to create a prototype bookmark. In other words, include project X, Y, and Z, but no versions, and get the latest and greatest versions in that POM with automatic migrations. That's cool.
Yeah. I brought up, I wish I could share my bookmarks, so import and export bookmarks. So yeah, again, if we are interested in these types of features, I think going over to the GitHub and raising those issues, that's probably the best way to kick these discussions off. So.
And Adarsh was very patient. Asked, IntelliJ helps to test concurrency scenarios. One thread nullifying a shared object while another is using it. But are there ways to test such scenarios in SI test env?
SI, maybe
What
CI?
is SI testing?
Maybe CI? CI/CD?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Trying to figure out, like, hey, are there other ways? And yeah, I'm not sure what we're asking there, but thanks for your patience. But yeah, this is the thing. Spring office hours, we're here all the time. Whatever's on your mind, it doesn't have to be about the topic that we're talking. We're lucky sometimes to have guests that are brilliant and know things like Siva. Siva, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a pleasure. And time just flies in this show when we're having fun, when I'm learning. My notes for this show are far and wide. This is great. I got a lot of new things to try out, and this has been fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks, DaShaun. Thanks, Dan, for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, no problem. Siva, if people want to get a hold of you, if you want them to get a hold of you, if you don't, you can just say don't get a hold of me. But if you want people to find you, where can they find you on the interwebs?
On Twitter, I have Siva Labs. That's and on most of the platforms, I go by the name Siva Labs. Blue Sky, YouTube, Twitter. Just search for Siva Labs. Most likely you'll find it.
I will get all of Siva's links in the show notes. So when this hits the podcast or when we update the YouTube replay, I will get all of those in the show notes. But yeah, again, Siva, we've talked forever online, so it's really good to finally sit down and chat with you. I hope we get a chance to meet each other in person soon. Hopefully spring AO next year, maybe, because I heard you're going there. But yeah, that'll be great to sit down and see you in 3D. So again, thanks for your time. We appreciate it, and keep up the great work over there at JetBrains. Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.